Count Dracula, the immortal vampire noble living in his Gothic castle in Transylvania, was an invention of the writer Bram Stoker. Count Dracula was, apparently, inspired by Vlad III, known as Vlad the Impaler. Modern intellectuals, of course, often recoil from associating Vlad with vampires, dismissing such notions as sensationalist distortions perpetuated by pop culture. And of course, they've got a point. Hollywood Dracula is a bit annoying. However, beyond these knee-jerk reactions against all the Hollywood Dracula movies, it turns out a deeper exploration reveals that the people of his day, the Wallachians, now in the area of Transylvania, Romania, undoubtedly considered him a vampire. So, as it turns out, the vast majority of Stoker's invention was in fact based on genuine and legitimate folklore of the Wallachians, and so could be seen as true. Vlad III was born in 1431 in the Principality of Wallachia, located in present-day Romania. He belonged to the house of Draculesti, a noble family with ties to the Order of the Dragon, from which his father, Vlad II Dracul, derived his surname Dracul. The name meant either dragon or devil. So here's fact number one, which Stoker got right. His name was Dracul, like Dracula, but more of a noble title. Vlad Tepes gained his epithet Tepes, meaning the Impaler, due to his preferred method of execution, where victims were impaled on stakes. This brutal tactic was used not only for punishment, but also as a psychological deterrent against his enemies, which apparently worked like a charm. One thing Stoker got wrong, though, was that he wasn't Count Dracula, but rather Prince Dracula. He was a prince, which is a lot more noble a title than a count. This was a powerful man. Vlad's rule was characterized by his efforts to strengthen Wallachia's defenses and maintain internal stability through harsh measures against crime and corruption. His methods, while effective in securing his principality, earned him a reputation for cruelty and ruthlessness, which resonated throughout Europe. Despite this, though, Vlad Tepes was also considered to be a hero celebrated in Romanian folklore as a reformer who cleaned up corruption, as well as a defender of his people against foreign invaders. His defiance against the Ottoman Empire and his tactics to instill fear in his adversaries left a lasting legacy in both historical records and popular culture. So strong, in fact, that he is still alive in the hearts of even the modern-day Romanians. But is he alive as a vampire in a very real way, just like in the Dracula legends? Well, let's have a look. Vlad Tepes is thought to have died in battle in December of 1476, and the exact circumstances of his death remain debated. He apparently had his head liberated from his shoulders by his enemies near the marshes of Bucharest. However, no one has ever learned where he is buried. His burial site is unknown, adding to the mystique and legends surrounding his life and afterlife. Romanian tradition claims he is buried at Snagov, near the marshes where he died. Even today, tourists can find his grave there, where his admirers still leave him flowers. However, an excavation of Snagov Monastery in 1933 revealed nothing but the bones of horses within. So, can we say Vlad wasn't buried there then? Or did he just rise from his grave? Many students of Romanian folklore like to say there is no folklore outright declaring Prince Vlad a vampire, but they seem to lack knowledge of Wallachian folklore at the time, which seems to say otherwise. Let us imagine we are in a 15th century Romani camp in Transylvania. The air is thick with the scent of wood smoke as families gather around their fires, speaking in hushed tones of the creatures that lurk beyond the flickering firelight. Among the Romani people, stories of werewolves and vampires are more than mere superstition. They are warnings passed down to protect the living from the restless dead. Jean-Paul Kléber, in his book titled The Gypsies, describes how Romani superstition intertwined with local folklore, reinforcing the idea that neglecting burial rites could doom a soul to roam the earth. The Mullo, or the Romani version of the vampire, unlike later literary vampires, was not always monstrous in appearance. Rather, it could seem unnaturally well preserved, even deceptively alive. The only cure for such an affliction was to exhume the body, pierce its heart, or burn it to ensure it would never rise again. Such beliefs were not unique to the Romani, but mirrored the broader folklore of Wallachia and Transylvania. The fear of the unburied dead was deeply ingrained in local custom, where werewolves were often seen as harbingers of vampiric attacks, and funerals carried strict rituals to prevent the deceased from returning. In this land of shadowed forests and forgotten graves, the lines between Romani legend and Wallachian tradition blurred, bound together by the same fear, that of the dead, if not properly laid to rest, may well walk again. In this case, as we said, Vlad was not only not properly buried, it was not even revealed to anybody where he was buried. This alone, based on the very well-known folklore beliefs of the people of Vlad's times in the regions of Wallachia, absolutely guaranteed they would immediately fear he became a vampire, and a powerful vampire at that, presumably, given just how commanding Prince Vlad actually was during his lifetime. Vlad Tepesh's death, which involved the unceremonious removal of his head, and then the disrespectful secrecy surrounding his burial site, aligns with conditions traditionally believed to lead to the creation of a Mullo in this time and place in history. This cultural context suggests that far from being a modern invention, the notion of Vlad Tepes as a vampiric figure has roots in the folk beliefs of his own time. Think about it. Would a nation known to perhaps be the most inclined of all nations to attach vampire legends to people for the slightest little mistake in burial practices, somehow, as if by magic, neglect to attach a vampire legend to a man treated in the worst possible way imaginable after death, and the scariest and most powerful and bloodthirsty figure in all your nation's history to boot? Makes absolutely no sense. When you actually know the folklore, there is no question they considered Prince Vlad to be a Mullo or a vampire after his death. It's believed this seemingly illogical conclusion has been caused by two things. One, the excesses of Hollywood Dracula flicks has, pretty understandably, caused some writers, even academics, to react in a similarly extreme way, completely ignoring the well-known folklore of Wallachia. And two, Romanians themselves so love the memory of Prince Vlad, also understandably, that they've taken great pains, it seems, to erase any such legend. In fact, they've claimed the enemies of Vlad during his lifetime, the Saxons, intentionally gave him a desecrating and blasphemous burial in order to make sure that Vlad will be seen as a vampire in the minds of his people and so ruin his reputation and tarnish his memory. But, ironically, even that claim only serves to reinforce the obvious, that conditions to make him a Mullo were met for whatever reason, and with whatever intention. According to the genuine folklore, it seems, Prince Vlad should absolutely have become a Mullo vampire. To not think so simply beggars belief. And if you still doubt Wallachians thought this way, and still want to argue it's simply impossible any Wallachian ever thought that he was a vampire, then listen to this. When Romania toppled its much-hated dictator, Nicolae Ceausescu, in 1989, he was reportedly buried in a disrespectful manner, in order to show their hatred for him. However, this went so strongly against the grain of the culture and the long tradition of proper burial that it spooked even the violent revolutionaries that had just executed him. It was reported that all the leading revolutionaries, even the new prime minister, wore garlic in their shoes for a while. You know, just in case the dictator might rise again as a Mullo to take vengeance on them. If the dictator can do it, why not Prince Vlad? Pretty safe to say, people in the 1500s pretty much certainly thought it wasn't too far-fetched an idea. It's told they thought he was still out there somewhere, laying low in the Transylvanian mountains, waiting for the day to lead his nation to greatness again. In fact, that legend's been around for centuries, and even in modern-day Romania, there are those who think Prince Vlad III is still watching over his native Wallachia, and will come back to lead them again one day. Given what we know now about what the old Wallachians really thought, maybe it's not so impossible.
Well, that just about wraps up tonight's tale from Lorehound. Join us as we sniff out more of history's most interesting stories.
As the hound dog entered the dimly lit library, he sensed an aura of mystery surrounding the ancient scrolls. The dusty shelves towered above him as he sniffed his way through the labyrinth of books. Suddenly, he picked up a scent and followed it to a secluded corner. With bated breath, he approached the shelf and pawed at the book, revealing the hidden scroll. As he rolled it out, he knew he had discovered a treasure worth protecting at all costs.